Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome. It's so nice to see you here. And I would also like to extend a special welcome to everybody who is watching on our YouTube live stream and all of my students in the online class Asian Studies 310, Studying Asia Culturally. We are delighted to have a wonderful speaker for you today. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Dr. Anna Sturr. I am the Center for South Asian Studies Director, and we do lots and lots of different events about South Asia here at UH Manoa, and we try our utmost to share them as widely as possible as we can online. So we are delighted today to bring you Ms. Pushpa Palanchoke. Pushpa is a charismatic vocalist and ethnomusicologist from Nepal who exhibits a dedication to community work, scholarship, history, and revival. She grew up in a home in which music was part of a spiritual practice. In addition to her strong musicianship as a singer, Pushpa runs a community program called Folklok, where she creates collaborative modules which breathe new life into community music traditions. An applied ethnomusicologist, she uses her work to educate, support, and uplift other women within Indigenous and traditional music spaces. Very few women are in her field, and she is a standout as an activist and artist. Grounded in social awareness and community empowerment, Pushpa stands out as an activist and artist in fields with very few women leaders. Pushpa is inspirational in her dedication to promoting women in Indigenous music, her depth of knowledge about traditional music, the way she draws inspiration from personal experiences and culture to compose new music, and her strong work with youth through Folklok. Her residency here is going to address diversity's dimensions of culture, ethnicity, race, and gender through musical and poetic expression and discussions of Indigenous and community empowerment through shared artistic practice of community arts work. And we hope to provide a forum for discussing its implementation beyond Pushpa's own practice. So this is our first event of her residency, and you may have seen these flyers around campus in their large or small form. They detail all of our events. So after this, our next one is going to be a performance tonight at 6 p.m. in Orvis Auditorium. And this is a very exciting performance because I get the amazing opportunity to accompany Pushpa on flute. And one of our very own composition students, Paul Cosme, is going to be accompanying us also on piano. So I would also like to thank especially the UH Music Department, and within that, the Ethnomusicology program for helping make this happen, and all of the other departments who have assisted in sharing and promoting Pushpa's events. So let us all give a very warm welcome to Pushpa. Oh wait, I've got to tell you about the other event. I see some of the participants sitting here in the audience, and this is the one more event tomorrow night at 6, which is a singing workshop. So if you get interested in what Pushpa is doing and you want to experience some of it firsthand, please do come. I put a sign-up thing on the flyer saying to email the Center for South Asian Studies, but you can show up at 6 in the choir room, room 36 in the music department if you are interested. That's all from me now, so please join me in welcoming Pushpa Palanchoke.
Good afternoon, everyone. First, happy Halloween. I was proposing Dr. Anna Sturr if I should wear some costume for this presentation. Thank you for showing up. And I have tons of things to share with you, but we have this time limitation. So I've prepared a read, and I'll just read through it. If you have any questions in between, you can always ask me to stop and put your question. Do we have too much of reverb in this space? Or is it? Okay. Because I can hear myself. And okay, anyways. Are you going to give that to me? I don't know which one works. Just try. Ah, okay. There. Work. Okay. Is it?
Okay, I'll advance it. Just tell me next slide, please.
Next slide, please. So, the music for indigenous people in Nepal is vital to the resilience they have practiced against the historical marginalization and to solidify their fight for recognition, political representation, and land and resource rights. Today, the indigenous people in Nepal celebrate their identity. The elderly fight against their solastalgia, and the younger generation seek their belongingness in their community music. Having understood this, and also the situation that many indigenous musics are on the verge of extinction, Folklore, a community-based music and arts program, supports indigenous music communities in Nepal to revitalize themselves. Next slide, please. So let me begin by giving you some pieces of information on indigenous movement in Nepal so that I can create a background for you. The National Foundation for the Development of Indigenous Nationalities Act 2002 in Nepal defines indigenous nationalities as those with distinct language, script, religion, culture, tradition, and lifestyle, and as those who have been maintaining their historical identity as per the practices since ancient times. So this recognition is actually a result of a long struggle. Next slide. Between 1768 and 1951, indigenous people in Nepal experienced significant suppression under the aristocratic Rana regime. The Ranas, who adapted the lavish lifestyle of British imperialists in India, favored a centralized and exclusionary approach to governance, perpetuating a hierarchical system that privileged the ruling elite and their allies. Indigenous languages, cultures, and practices were suppressed. For example, the Neva indigenous people of the Central Hills were denied to practice their literature. Large tracts of land were appropriated in southern plains, leaving many indigenous Tharu people dispossessed and struggling to maintain their traditional way of life. Furthermore, the Ranas discouraged indigenous institutions and restricted them from knowledge sharing and social mobility. Even after the fall of the Rana regime in 1951, though a democratic system opened up new possibilities for indigenous groups to assert their identities, the hegemonic policy of nationalization of Saha monarchs who came after the Ranas continued to favor the epistemology and ontology of Brahmanic elite class. So during this period, several factors contributed to indigenous marginalization in the country's political landscape. The political power remained concentrated in the hands of traditional elite, predominantly from the Brahmin and Kshatriya communities. So social economic disparities persisted, hindering access to education, resources, and opportunities for indigenous people. The traditional elite and wealthy landlords held substantial land ownership, while indigenous people often faced landlessness and insecurity. Besides, the indigenous communal land ownership was also challenged by the state, and many community-owned land on which the indigenous traditions depended were brought under bureaucratic control. So indigenous languages and cultures and knowledge systems were not given adequate recognition or protection. The dominance of the Hindu Brahmanic Nepali language and the culture in the political sphere made it challenging for indigenous groups to communicate their needs effectively and to preserve their cultural identities. It was only after 1990, with the restoration of multi-party democracy and the signing of the Comprehensive Peace Accord in 2006, that Nepal began to witness significant efforts to address the political exclusion of indigenous people. Constitutional reforms and legal provisions aimed at promoting inclusivity and diversity, recognizing the rights and identities of indigenous groups, and ensuring their representation in various state institutions. Next slide, please. One of the significant milestones for indigenous movement, however, was the declaration of the country as the Federal Republic in 2003, which led to the promulgation of the Constitution. The Constitution recognized the multi-ethnic, multilingual, and multi-religious nature of Nepal and incorporated provisions for affirmative action and proportional representation to ensure greater participation of indigenous groups in political processes. This has led to increased awareness among the indigenous people of their rights and has increased their will to study and voice their history, identity, music, and culture. Despite these advances, challenges remain, and these challenges are not about political representation today. It is about remembering and revitalizing knowledge and reframing community values which have been lost during the past struggles. So this is where indigenous community music traditions and support programs like Folklore can come in to fill the gap. Next slide, please. So I'll just give you a slight idea of what is Nepali indigenous music ecology made of. So I'm taking reference from Hugh Sipper's 5 elements for sustainable music ecology in order to give you a generic idea of Nepali indigenous music ecology. Please consider that I'm primarily focused on music that is made communally. Next slide, please. So who are the practitioners and community when we talk about Nepali indigenous or community-based music? So the government has recognized 59 indigenous groups across the Himalayas, hills, plains, and plateaus of Nepal. Music is an integral part of their cultural practices, yet many of them do not have words in their local dialect that translate to music. So for instance, among the Newa people, the word baja is synonymous with music, but it refers to instruments. And instruments are believed to be a materialized form of the deity of music, Nasadya. Similarly, among the Tharu people, the word nach comes close to music, but it translates to dance. So the term musician does not fully capture the roles people engaged with indigenous music do. So the music makers, I prefer using the term practitioners to denote them who play music instruments and are actively partaking in communal rituals. For these practitioners, the music they produce is participatory and their community is largely composed of devotees rather than spectators. And the audience is not just human, since musical offerings are in a lot of cases associated with rituals and divine and ancestral invocations. This, however, does not mean the music isn't made for entertainment purposes at all. Music for entertainment is also a huge repertoire. Next slide, please. So the exchange between practitioners and community did not happen in monetary terms in the past. The community offered edible or wearable gifts, For practitioners, their musical services actually ensure social prestige and social security too. So this is, however, slowly changing. The music groups today, they have to demand monetary incentives because only clothing gifts or or edible gifts won't do justice to their time dedication. And also because money seems to be the best means of appreciation in a capitalistic setting. Next slide, please. So talking about the next slide. Yeah. Okay, so talking about another aspect of the Nepali indigenous music ecology, the system of learning. Music skills are passed down orally and in ritualistic settings. We don't have scores that we use in most of the cultures. However, younger generations are bringing in and using new tools and techniques. Let's say, for example, younger people in Niwa community, they have started writing down music syllables. Can we move to next slides? So if you see in the picture, there's on whiteboard. So this picture is from one of the apprenticeship of Tonani Dapha, a music group from Kirtipur. Although these transcriptions lack any melodic or rhythmic indications, they make the learning process convenient. So younger people are more driven to writing it down. The older generation, however, they think that this poses a threat to their traditional values, as the younger generation is more interested in the end of apprenticeship rather than being engaged in the overall apprenticeship and the community engagement that it has to offer. But for the new generation of practitioners who have to juggle multiple things at once, from education to work life, adapting to tools like this appears to be the best option. Besides that, many of the traditional learning spaces are not accessible to women. And in the same community that we were talking about earlier, they did not allow women to practice any music instrument because there was a set of belief in the community that if women practice music, the deity of aesthetic will curse them and the community. However, this norm is slowly changing, and women are getting access to the learning spaces. We will talk further about this in the coming slides. Next slide, please. So talking about the context and construct of Nepali indigenous music, we have a brief idea of the political context for the indigenous music from initial slides. The period of separation was also the time when musical practices of indigenous people were overshadowed. For example, here in the slide, the images are of a brass band of Nepal army that was brought to Nepal by Janga Bahadur Rana after his visit to England in the 1850s. These bands are still dominant in the governmental ceremonies. The records say that Rana disregarded the instruments that were in use before that period in his military. However, at the same time, the indigenous movement has led to the revival and promotion of indigenous music. After Nepal has switched to a federal mode of governance, it has become actually easier for the music groups to demand support from their local representatives to make the preservation and practice of their tradition easier. Next slide, please. The communal musical events and activities align with the agricultural cycle. So I'm trying to give you another context here rather than just a political context. Most ritual music is brought to a halt during showing season and in monsoon, coming back alive during and after harvest. Next slide, please. For the Gurung people of Khyachok, a village in western Nepal, the barrel drum madal has a ritualistic importance. It leads most of the communal rites throughout the year. They perform two important rituals around the drum that defines their year-round musical engagement. In the fourth Nepali month, right before harvest season, they perform a ritual named Guru Madal Thiba to bring the instrument back into use, which they put into storage in the 11th month right after the season of sowing rice, millet, and maize. Likewise, for the Newa people of Kirtipur, they rest their instruments during the monsoon for 3 months. This is also the time for them to prepare and sow rice. Masters say that they avoid musical engagement to secure their instruments from rain. Next slide, please. So while musical activities are markers of special hours and days in a calendar, they also define territory and important sites of a community. Here on the slide is a map showing the route of Devi Pyakha, a processional dance form of Tonani Dapha Khala, a music group of Kirtipur town in Kathmandu, Nepal. The procession stops and performs special musical rituals on specific sites, including shrines of guardian deities. Some musical engagements also extend beyond the city territory and offer intercity pilgrimage and exchanges. Performances are laid for life rites, for routine, weekly, monthly, or yearly social rites with the purpose of accomplishing certain goals, of invoking certain deities, earning religious merits, and chasing away bad women. Next slide, please. So now coming to infrastructures and regulations that hold the indigenous music ecology in Nepal. So indigenous communal music events and activities, they depend on the communal assets like lands that community people cultivate communally and use the harvest towards maintaining the infrastructures. Among Newa people, music institutions would be assigned land, namely guti. The lands should have to be large and fertile enough to provide the institution with year-round necessities like oil to lit lamps, crops to hold feast, or any harvest that could be bartered with anything necessary for maintenance of instruments and other ritual objects. So such a system, however, was disrupted at one point in history. The locals, since the establishment of down-to-up governance systems introduced with Nepal being a federal country, has, however, created an environment where these groups can today demand direct support from the local government, but they have very less control in that. Unlike earlier, they would have their own land and could harvest their own own crops to support their traditions. Besides that, in other indigenous communities, communal music events are held with donations from the wealthier families and the community. Let's go to another slide. So talking about the media and music industry presence of indigenous music in Nepal, so Radio Nepal is the first government-owned radio broadcast service in Nepal. During its initial years of installment by the Sahar regime, the weekly broadcast hours dedicated to folk ethnic music was only 1.5 hours out of total 51 hours and 40 minutes. The folk music were mostly the recomposed and arranged songs based on the field recordings of elite Brahminic castes. While for a long period of time, the access to music production and visibility in media and music industry were confined to those who could afford it, today, because of the advent of social media and increase in digital literacy, indigenous music has increased visibility. Practitioners willingly record themselves playing in certain rites and upload videos to their own social media accounts. So there are instances where our community musicians, while doing their ritual music practices, they would go live through their personal Facebook accounts. I think that actually helps them to recall the memories. Besides that, they also share these recordings with their younger practitioners, enabling them to learn the music tradition itself. However, some traditions are deemed to be performed secretively and aren't very much out there in the larger public broadcast forums. Young or adult, most Nepali people have access to digital media and music from all across the world today. And this has actually posed challenge to traditional musics like this, traditional music which needs to be practiced in secrets. So the pop culture music has superseded spatial communal music because of their unavailability on the broader digital platform. The challenge for indigenous music traditions is to be able to celebrate its communal values and at the same time also increase its own visibility on broader social media so that the coming generation is attracted to continue the practices. Next slide. So here, after that background about the indigenous music ecology in Nepal, I will introduce you to the folklore program. So folklore program is a community-based music program that responds to the needs of community-based indigenous music groups in Nepal. Folklore runs under support of Satori Center for the Arts and of a mobile American corner called US Embassy Book Bus Nepal. So Folklore started out as a 3-month short-term project to create a workshop for musical exchange and knowledge sharing and production between a group of community music practitioners and modern-day music professionals for a music festival in 2020. However, it continues to the date and it has expanded its territories. For the past 3 years, we have worked on multiple aspects of the music that the group we made in early 2020 practices. The music is called Dapha music. So Dapha music is a singing genre of Neva indigenous people and is in dire need of promotion and revitalization. We have worked for the past 3 years based on an ad hoc model, responding to the needs of our local partners at the historic town of Kirtipur in Kathmandu, capital city of Nepal. We have developed a model of working in indigenous community-based music settings. And this model is aimed towards building agency of the community practitioners in remembering, revitalizing, and reframing their musical heritages. Next slide, please. Thank you. So, talking about the work areas of folklore, at folklore, we believe in fostering a supportive environment for community music practitioners. We strive to encourage and uplift practitioners, providing a nurturing space that allows them to flourish and grow individually as well as within their community settings. So these supports range from providing economic aid for them to buy music instruments maybe or to maintain their instruments, to providing them programmatic support. These programmatic support can range from designing workshops for them where they can conduct dialogues around how they want to go about their tradition. For example, we offered 32 flutes to Tonani Dapha, a music group from Kirtipur, and designed a music basics workshop for the new batch of apprentices in 2020. Through that apprenticeship program, the women as old as 71 who had access to the music institution for the first time in their life recognized their ability to participate and enjoy community music and social interactions. Um, our second work area is collaboration. So, collaboration is at the heart of what we do. We recognize that creative ideas and meaningful experiences are often born from working together. By collaborating with practitioners, researchers, and enthusiasts, both from and outside of the community, we enhance the depth and richness of our understanding of the tradition. For example, in 2022, we collaborated with a program namely Nepal Heritage Documentation Project. It is run by Heidelberg Center for Transcultural Studies. We collaborated with them to build a digital map on tangible heritages surrounding community music of Kirtipur town. So for the project, the music practitioners from and around the neighborhood of Tonani were invited to participate in a personal narrative building workshop. So in these workshop, the community members were invited to share their experiences in relation to the tangible heritage sites of their community and of their town. So the data incorporating experiences of women and younger community members was fed into the digital archive of Nepalese arts and architecture. Our another area of work is research. So the above example that I just gave reflects our dedication to delve into the historical roots of the music as well as the experiences of people that we work with. So this allows for strengthening the community values and building agency of the practitioners. Our research is led by the community practitioners themselves as they remain at the center of the remembering process, and we simply play the role of facilitator for the processes. We believe that people themselves are knowledge bearers. Hence, our research activity incorporates workshops for working with community people to pen down their experiences. The community informed knowledge from these researches guide our creative endeavors, ensuring a justifiable representation of the past while paving the way for innovation. Our fourth work area is to create new knowledge. So speaking in this line, currently we are working on a graphic novel where a 9 years old girl child travels into multiverses. So the image that you see towards the end of that slide, so it's a piece of that graphic novel. So this 9 years old girl child, she travels into multiverses and interacts with guardian deities of her town. And with the deity of music, and though women in real life play peripheral roles in music traditions, the novel places female characters at the heart of the tradition. The novel is based on the folktale that we came across during a casual interaction with Master Siddhinaran Maharjan from the community. As the master became motivated in remembering and rewriting the forgotten tale, we are putting an effort to create its new version for the younger generation. We strive to generate new expressions of traditional music that honor tradition while resonating with contemporary audiences. Next slide, please. So I'll just briefly talk about the values that we embrace in folklore. We celebrate and encourage creative spirit within folklore. Embracing innovation and artistic expression, we explore new ways to interpret and present music and knowledge surrounding it while preserving its essence and authenticity. Our exhibitions, for example, are spaces where the knowledge shared by the community is presented in an artistic manner. Just this September, we came in partnership with the Kathmandu University Art School. Their students are going to work, actually they are working while I'm here. The students of Kathmandu University Art School, they are working collaboratively with the community practitioners, young and adults and also elders, to add to our existing exhibition on Dapha music tradition. Also, our collaboration is an important value that is at the heart of our work. So we recognize that collective efforts amplify the impact of our work. By joining forces with diverse faculties, we foster a community of practitioners, researchers, enthusiasts, and other stakeholders. This allows exploration of varied aspects of a music tradition and also encourages people involved for further creations. For example, for our annual conference and music festival in 2022, we collaborated with Social Science Baha, a research institution, and Nepal Music Archive, a music archive in Nepal, to hold panel discussions and seminars around musics of Nepal and their problems. At Folklore, we emphasize individual practitioners and communities to take charge of their own heritage. So self-determination is another value we deeply believe in. Through self-determination, practitioners can explore ways to secure their tradition and regenerate their unique voices as a community. It's important for us as an outsider institution that we do not hoard the power of decision-making with us. Establishment of community-led organization, Dapha Tuku, is a result of this intention. I'll talk further about Dapha Tuku in other slides. So the Dapha groups that we're working with in Kirtipur, they formed and registered their own parent body in the March this year. And we are currently partnering with them for organization of a year-round youth arts program for younger Dapha practitioners. So self-determination of the practitioners themselves is something we believe in and is something that we work towards. We also believe in creating a welcoming and inclusive space where people from all gender, backgrounds, culture, and abilities can come together to learn and participate in community music. Folklore became a catalyst to invite women into Dapha tradition in Kirtipur. After it encouraged Tonani Dapha Khala or Dapha group to invite women into its tradition in 2020, neighboring music groups too have seen increased women participation. And we look forward to making similar impact and becoming catalyst of similar change in the community that we work with. Last but not the least, folklore encourages community practitioners to exercise democratic values. Because community music groups are intergenerational and mostly based on kinship, sometimes younger people and women are excluded from the important decision making. So folklore facilitates a safe environment for all to speak their mind. And we encourage spaces where everyone can speak of their interest and of their desires. Next slide. Thank you. So this slide informs about the reach of folklore program and the impacts that it has made in the past 3 years. So folklore program has reached out to 49 music communities and visited 18 community centers and conducted 18 workshops and 88 sessions. So I think when we say workshops, the workshops are on different topics. For example, we have held workshops on handwritten textbooks of the Dapha tradition. We have done workshops on personal narrative building, which I talked about earlier, and similar other kind of workshops. And when I'm talking about 88 sessions, these sessions includes one-time events like music exchanges or music concerts, panel discussions of such. The workshops and various engagements were made possible with the help of 80 collaborators, researchers, and instructors. We have also conducted 7 online programs and reached 53 direct participants. Our exhibition has succeeded to reach out to 11,081 participants. And till the date, we have facilitated 4 apprenticeship programs with 87 apprentices, collaborated with 25 organizations, and conducted 18 performances, engaging 517 performers. And when I say performers, they are both traditional practitioners as well as the music professionals who take up music as their career. So from all this engagement, today we have in our repository 54 recorded Dapha songs and 24 hours of videos of discourses and conversations around this tradition. I will share a link to this towards the end of the presentation. Next slide. Establishment of Dapha Tugu is actually one of the most important outcome of folklore. I talked about this earlier. So the community that we are working with is the community of Dapha practitioners in a town called Kirtipur. So the town of Kirtipur have over 32 Dapha groups. And the community who we were working with since past 3 years, they decided to form a parent body for all these groups. So they registered their own organization called Dapha Tuku in March of 2023, just this year. And they intend to actually represent all these Dapha groups, both in political forums and in the art spaces of the larger Nepali art discourse and heritage discourse. And we are very grateful and also very proud that we are collaborating with this institution to work with younger generation of the tradition today. Next slide. Thank you. So we work both to build self-determination within music communities and also to build appreciation of tradition outside of it. I will now take you through some pictures from our gamut of programs in 2020. Before that, if you have anything that you want to ask me, I can address them. Okay, so moving forward. Next slide, please. Or maybe I'll just talk a bit about the earlier slide too. Yeah, thank you. So, I'm not in the very right place. So, Oh, okay. So the picture that there are like two pictures in the slide, as you see, of course. The group of women with the men who are seated and are playing their drums. They are from one of the first Dapha groups in Kirtipur municipality who invited women into their tradition 20 years ago. So we came in contact with them to collaboratively organize our annual conference and annual music festival. And in that particular photo, they are singing a song for a video recording that we were making as a promotional video for the music conference and festival. This other picture is was taken after a storytelling session with the master, Siddhinarayan Maharjan. If you can see the man who's standing in the center and towards the back, he is putting on glasses like me. He's wearing a cap, so he's actually my master as well. I've learned the song. If you come to our concert in the evening, most of the songs that I'll be singing, I've learned from him. So he was sharing story of his a folk tale of his community with this group of young people. They are creative art educators, and they were there in the community as part of their research project for their program called Creative Arts Educators Program. The program is run by Satori Center for the Arts itself. Next. So I've been talking about the annual music festival and conference that Folklore holds. So the name of the conference and the music festival is Dapha Calling, Revitalizing Our Musical Heritage. So this particular picture is from our music festival last year. So these group of women dancers, they were enrolled into this tradition specifically to attend this music festival. So the Dapha music tradition has different aspects within it. One important aspect of it is the aspect of dance and theater. So, like I mentioned earlier, women usually don't get access to the ritualistic spaces. After our call for this group to participate in our music exchange program, they actually conducted a whole new apprenticeship and taught a whole new set of dancers and music players to perform this act. And I was very overwhelmed by this, to be frank. And the other interesting thing is, for them to come and perform on this stage, they actually held a huge ritual in their community and then a huge feast and also a performance just before a day of this event. And that's the way they do it in this community. So you can imagine the cost of all this. But I'm very grateful that they actually decided to do this. So today, these dancers, they just don't dance in the ritual spaces, but they are also going outside of traditional spaces and earning themselves and their community some income. Next slide, please. So I was talking about workshops that we conduct. So here is a calligrapher who is participating in our Safu writing workshop. So Safu within Dapha tradition is a handwritten manuscript which is passed down from one generation to the other. And so this handwritten textbook is actually a book of songs. So the tradition is every next generation needs to reiterate the song book. However, this has this is less in practice today. So we were actually trying to encourage the younger generation to first learn to write the script, and then also to write down these songs, rewrite the songs. So yeah, the output of the songwriting workshops, we also took them to our exhibition. And in these exhibition, the people from different other Dapha groups of other towns were coming in and recognizing that, okay, oh, these songs are also in our groups. So doing workshops and then taking their outcomes to exhibitions is something that we do as part of our research and creation. Oh, I forgot something in the earlier slide. Sorry. So in the other picture, so the community music practitioners are there, and they are in presence of Professor Dr. Richard Wittes. So Dr. Richard Wittes is an emeritus in University of London at the moment, but he has done extensive research in the field of Dapha in Nepal, and so before our Safu rewriting workshop, because he happened to be in Nepal, fortunately, we invited him to share his understanding and his research on Safu tradition. So he was sharing his ideas and his research on Safu, and there were other community people who were sharing their understanding. So this exchange actually helped the next generation to understand the Safu writing tradition itself, and they were more interested in learning calligraphy to rewrite their Safus. Yeah. So this was another workshop that we did in 2021. So we did a workshop on creating personal narrative around the tangible heritages surrounding music tradition of the Kirtipur town. So you can see that an intergenerational group is actually participating in the workshop. They are writing down what kind of things they do throughout the year in different spaces of the town. And based on the same workshop, today, this group of people, they can actually take you to heritage tours around the town. So this has actually created this new source of income for their music community as well. And here at the end of the slide, so this picture is from an exchange with the summer school participants of a program called Heritage as Placemaking. It is also led by the Heidelberg Center for Transcultural Studies. So these students from different faculties, urban planning, some were from anthropology and other social sciences. They were there in the community trying to learn about the interconnectedness between music and the overall and other aspects of the society. And the community people actually invited them into one of their festivals. So just before the annual festival of Moninaka in September, the music bands of Kirtipur town, they go around a procession every Saturday. And this procession is led by music groups who actually invoke deities of each shrine, from small to the bigger one, for the people of town to earn religious merit. So these summer school participants were participating in this procession, and they were there to learn about the tradition. They were eating Newa food. They were listening to Newa music. They were seeing people perform different rituals. And while for these summer school participants, they were experiencing a whole new culture. The people from the culture, the community people, for them, to see new people come into their community and inquire about their tradition, allow the space for the community people to reflect on their tradition, and also to get motivated to explore their own tradition. Next slide. Uh, so we are at slide 26 of 37. but I know last of the pages are all references. So this one, okay, this one is interesting. So we did this workshop, a songwriting workshop, based on a folk tale of the community, and women aged between 26 to 26 and above, I would say, because there were elder women or aged 70, or some were also even 80. So they took part in this songwriting workshop, and while the folk tale was being told by a male master, female had their own way of understanding the women had their own way of understanding the folk tale. So I was talking about this with Dr. Stur yesterday. So in this folk tale, there is a male protagonist who dies at the end of the story when a female protagonist insists on something. So when we asked the elder women who are participating in the workshop about what is their understanding of the story, they said, well, if women cross their borders, if they speak a lot, if they speak loud, something bad happens. So that was their learning from the story. And when we asked younger generation of women about their understanding of story, their sense of understanding was this story was told by someone probably to meet some objective, and it necessarily should not mean that a female. It necessarily should not mean that when a female speaks, something bad happens. So that was younger people's understanding. So based on that conversation, the group came up with a song where, again, in the story, there's a plot where the male protagonist is turned into a sheep by a witch. And this male protagonist actually pleads the the women protagonist, to come and rescue him. So this group picked that plot and made a song around it. So yeah, and we've been performing that song in different stages. Even today, we perform this song, and if you want to listen to this song, it is there in our YouTube channel. You can also find it in a Swiss radio. We actually sent that song because we were participating in one of their projects. So, next slide. And so these are just pictures from our Dapha exhibitions. You can see people of different age groups coming and taking their own time on our contents. Next, please. Next slide. So, as part of, again, our annual conference, we invite local stakeholders and in conversation with community practitioners. So, yeah, I think I addressed some of these already. Next slide, please. So yeah, this is another program that I'm very excited about. So this program is called Dapha Dukupasa program. So the organization that the parent body that the community people registered this year, we collaborated with them and and organized a 3 months long fellowship for 35 young practitioners of the community. And in this fellowship, we were providing workshops for building entrepreneurial, interpersonal communications, and creative skills. The program continues to the date. The second phase of the program allows the participants of the first phase of the program to plan and execute our annual conference and music festival. Next slide, please. So our project for 2024, we look forward to organizing our 4th edition of Dapha Calling. Dapha Calling this year is aimed at connecting the community with long-term researchers. We want more people like us. And when I say us, we are not trying to confine ourselves to music researchers. We are trying to reach out to researchers who would be interested to work in junction of music and other areas. So if any one of you is interested to study this tradition and specifically come to Nepal and work with this beautiful community of art practitioners, you are most welcome. And our second project for 2024, so we found out, we realized that our Dapha Tuku Pasa program, the 3 months fellowship, was very productive and of importance to the younger practitioners in a sense that this workshop was enabling them to build a community of like-minded people, and most importantly, of people who practice Dapha and who are willing to practice this tradition. And not just practice, but practice in a creative and innovative manner. So we planned and we intend to do multiple of these kind of programs to neighboring towns as well. Next slide. Yeah. So for 2024, they are our projects. Besides that, Folklore is a program that is aimed towards enabling and facilitating the community music people, the community practitioners themselves, to reflect on their tradition and explore their tradition on their own. We are not advocate of one specific tradition. We are rather facilitators who support groups who are willing to carry their tradition forward in a creative, innovative, and democratic way. That being said, if you want to find us online, that's the QR code for you to scan. That will lead you to our Instagram page. And on our Instagram, you will find a link in our bio. That link will can there in that link can lead you to our website, to our YouTube channel, to our Facebook channel. And yeah, now this is the time for you to ask me questions. Thank you so much.
If you could actually come up to the mic and ask them, then all of the online people can
I have a question about the Sofu writings. So, what form is it? Is it in a Sutra forms or Sanskrit or Pali? What form the Sofu is practicing?
Um, so, um, Safu word, it's a Nepal Bhasa word. Um, Thank you for the question. It allows me to talk a bit about the tradition itself. So Dapha tradition, it originated in the royal court of Malla dynasty in 1600s, and the songs of Dapha, they are in different languages. We have songs in Sanskrit, we have songs in Maithili, we have songs in Nepal Bhasa, of course, and we also have songs in Hindi. Um, um, However, uh, because these songs have been passed down only in written form for a long time, a lot of the text itself has eroded already, right? The language has gone over a process of erosion, and a lot of in a lot of instances, we really don't know what the song is trying to say. So, for your question about the script, the earliest safu that the music groups hold, some of them are written in Ranjana Lipi. So Ranjana Lipi is understood to be as specific to the Kathmandu Valley itself. And some others are written in Prachalit Lipi, that is close to Devanagari Lipi. The recent ones, they are in Devanagari Lipi. Yeah.
Thank you for your talk. I just had a question about the female dancers that you were talking about, where it was very revolutionary. It was the first time to have females performing that piece, right? And I'm curious how the group navigated as they were in their apprenticeship for the first time. For instance, the ritual dress for women, and did they change the steps at all? Was it exactly the same? And how was that sort of negotiated? How the women were then going to perform?
Thank you so much for the question. So again, that gives me another chance to talk a bit about the tradition again. So within the Dapha tradition, there's this another sub-tradition called Khopyakha. So Khopyakha are a genre where stories are told in form of songs, and there are dances accompanying the song, right? However, this tradition has gone extinct already. So not a lot of groups practice this tradition at all. So even for this group, they hadn't practiced this dance form for a long time. So a lot of about the tradition was already lost. So they actually invited a master from another group, from another town, to teach them this dance. So in that sense, I would say I'm assuming that the whole dance form has been borrowed from another town, right? But at the same time, it's interesting that this master, who is actually progressive, he is a new generation master. He is in his 40s, and he goes and teaches in lots of spaces like this where people have forgotten their tradition and they want someone to come and teach them, right? So he actually invites people irrespective of their gender and also caste and ethnic group. So I think the central role was played by this master, who actually allowed, or I won't say allowed, for whom the question of not inviting women was not a question at all. So they just invited them. Besides that, there's also another piece of information in this particular case is, so the community who practiced, revived this dance, they say that earlier women themselves danced this dance, but they don't have like any, let's say, like a written or like any visual record of this. Yeah.
Thank you so much. My question is about Newa youth and language revitalization. So I would presume that you're singing at least partially in Nepal Bhasa, and so many young people are kind of losing their ability, perhaps, to speak Newa Bhasa. And so I'm curious to hear how this tradition is also playing into language revitalization for young people.
Thank you so much. That's actually a very tricky question, I would say, because, like I mentioned earlier, the songs have been passed down for more than 600 years, and not till recently, let's say like 50 or 60 years ago, many people could write in the community. So writing songs was in hand of very few who could do that, right? So if we look at the songs and their text, you will find hyphens and commas or like punctuations like that in a very different spaces within the text. And a lot of times you really don't know what the song is trying to say. So this is of this has been of such a huge question for Dapha researchers and young practitioners like me, what we should do for songs like that. Should we find a linguist who can, maybe correct these songs? But at the same time, it's a very ethical question. How can we say if something is correct or not correct if the community has been practicing that and they have put their meaning into these songs? In that sense, I won't say these songs can be means for the younger generation to learn or continue with their language itself. But if they want that to be, if they want these songs to be means for them to actually keep practicing their Nepal Bhasa, then I think we need a good group of linguists who are willing to actually exercise their expertise in Nepal, ancient Nepal Bhasa, and then, rephrase the songs, if that made sense.
Yes, one question. Do you have any archive for voice recording?
Oh, so should I repeat that question for the, okay. So the question was, is there any archive for the songs, right? With this institution, Dapha Tuku, we are trying to work towards that. In our record, we have recorded audios of some 54 Dapha songs. But we haven't been able to share that publicly. That's something we need to do, but we haven't been able to do that because of multiple reasons being lack of human resource with us and also lack of money.
Thank you very much for that talk. I learned a great deal. Well, actually, my question was really a follow-up from the previous one and your answer. Because I was wondering, you've collected so many resources. You've got a huge, so not only recordings, but you've got research, lectures, talks, and so on. So I understand the problem of human resources and money. Yeah. So these need to be preserved somehow and available for people in the future. So do you envisage something that's purely online, or could you imagine a physical repository where people could come and visit, like the people you're inviting next year? Yeah. How do you see the future developing in that way? Do you think it's possible?
Yeah, of course. Thank you so much for that question. So some of the dissemination work, we do it through our exhibitions. And just this year, we handed over our exhibition to Dapha Tuku, this local organization, local parent body of the Dapha groups. And they are trying to... they have a small office at the moment. They are trying to expand it, of course. And at this office, they have displaced all the exhibition material that we have by far. We do envision digital space where you can actually come and listen to these audio recordings or other recordings that we have. If you go to our YouTube channel, we have most of the video recordings that we have done. Again, that image is actually a screenshot of the YouTube channel of ours. And I think it's all question of, to be frank, at the moment, at present, I am the only one working for the project. Not in a sense that I'm the only person in terms of planning and designing the overall programs. But I am open, because we work with multiple collaborators and also with the community people in ground. If someone is willing to take up what we have and is willing to share it through them, we are very open to it. Yeah, if that answered your questions.
Thank you so much. I was just wondering about just more about the presence of women traditionally in this, I guess, in these traditions, and if there were, if it was specific contexts in which women weren't allowed to practice, or specific songs, or if it's like a public versus private or religious. Yeah, just more about that. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you so much. To answer this, let's understand the concept of the deity of aesthetic a bit. So among Newa indigenous people, so here we are not talking about other communities. So for different communities, there will be like different concepts of this, of course. For Newa indigenous people, the people who practice this Dapha music, their deity of aesthetic is Nasa Deo. Their apprenticeship is associated with the shrine of Nasa Deo. So apprenticeship is announced once in every 10 to 15 years, though the duration has increased these days. People aren't being able to announce that often. And in every 10 to 15 years, new apprentices are invited. And so these apprentices are men because they would be representing their family in society at large. So the apprenticeships would be held in past in a master's house. And to initiate this apprenticeship, the master would draw the energy of the primary Nasa shrine into this learning space. So the whole norm of female should not even watch or look at the shrine of Nasa Deo keeps them away from the apprenticeship itself, because the space, the learning space itself has the Nasa Deo there, right? So again, it also relates to your question of public and private life. So once an apprentice learns the instrument or the music from the master, they go through a training and then come out after a least of 3 months and to maximum of a year, and they come out and perform for the first time in public in front of Nasa Deo shrine again. And after they have made their first public performance, which we can understood as a convocation of these apprentices, now they can go out and perform in public spaces. So performing in public spaces would mean they are representing their family. And because this performances in a lot of instances are associated with year-round ritual practices of the community, so each of these men, they are there not just making music, but then representing their family in the larger society. For women, this piece, even today, the question of whether women should be invited into these spaces still persists, because women are married off, right? So I have known even my masters asking, okay, let's say we will teach the girls these musics, and once they are married off, who's going to replace their place, right? So that's a huge question for masters. But at the same time, the other interesting thing that is happening, the other interesting phenomena that is raising in the community is, because less and less of men are participating in these music spaces because they have to go to work, this music tradition, it was born out of agriculture-based society, which isn't there anymore. So the Newa people are rare indigenous people who are in a very urban setting, right? And people really find time to practice this music tradition these days. And with that scene in mind, now masters are looking for married women, women who are married into this community or into the neighborhood, into their neighborhood. The music tradition has benefit of inviting them into the tradition because they won't go anywhere now. And they seem to be someone who can actually come and join, because most of them are housewives, or most of them are someone who are at house most of the time, taking care of the elders and also doing like agricultural work. So that actually keeps women at a very beneficial position for music in terms of their exercising music. And it's, I personally like this new growing phenomena quite a lot, because imagine a woman who was always inside a private space, comes out, practice music, and go to towns and cities and does music. Imagine the joy. And I think that is one of the reasons why folklore also has grown so much, because the participation has increased by threefolds, and the excitement and joy that women bring into these spaces, it's remarkable. Yeah.
Pushpa, thank you so much for that wonderful presentation, and what a great note to end on. Excitement and joy. So thank you all very, very much for coming. Thank you to everybody out there listening and watching on the live stream. I really appreciate all of your presence, and please go out and experience some excitement and joy in your lives today, including perhaps at Pushpa's concert at 6 p.m. in Orvis Auditorium. Thank you all. Thank you, Pushpa.
So there's some brochures if you want to